So, Rachel, hello and welcome.
Hello.
So, I am so happy that you agreed to chat with us today and share your story as, somebody who has migraine and has been dealing with it for quite some time. And so I hope for today that you can just share, your journey. And you are a member of the Migraine Resilience Method. You've gone through the program. We are still working together. We extended it a little bit. And so maybe though where we'll start is just if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, where
Okay.
you live and your family and all of this.
Okay. I live smack dab in the middle of Canada, and we have far too much snow, in my opinion. The weather is crazy. Um, I am a mom of two teenagers and a wife of 21 years, very, very shortly. We got married very young. We were 19.
Oh my goodness, I
Yeah.
didn't know this.
And people ask, well, don't you regret getting married young? And I said, no, we've really had fun growing up together. And that is, he feels the same. So we've had so many adventures. I'm also a business owner, and I run a private home care, palliative care respite group along with my business partner. And so stress is high.
Yeah, I mean, anyone working in healthcare right now, I'm sure can attest to that. And taking care of others, even when you've got enough people and, all hands on deck, it's a really tough job. So, yes, and I know you didn't mention it, but even the work that you do outside of your business work can be a lot, right? With helping family members and that.
Yes. Yeah.
So I
We're
remember
very
being
involved
very,
with both our
yeah.
families. We help on both their yards. They have larger acreages, and so we're there helping and doing tons of gardening. We are in when you have a small window of green, it's like go time. So
Yeah.
that is
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember because it was, around the time I remember we chatted, in that season before you started in and you were explaining, all of what was going on and what you were involved in. And I just remember, wow, that would be a lot for somebody feeling good, like for somebody in perfect health who did not have some daily symptoms and pain, that would be a lot to take on. And so I remember kind of in my own head thinking, how's she going to do this? Like, how is this going to be sustainable? How is it even happening right now? But, I felt for you, honestly, like, yeah. And then hearing you were in this beginnings of this business and, had so much on your shoulders, hadn't yet built out a team necessarily to the size that is needed, to like take that weight off your shoulders. So, okay. So yes, we got busy life. You've got like lots of responsibilities. You've got kids. Your own business in itself, like entrepreneurship or working for yourself and feeling like you're responsible for other people, or you have to respond, like be there for other people.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So, then at this point, maybe tell me just health wise, what was going on for you?
So if we go back, in the really big group, you had asked the question, when did you start getting migraines? Well, I can remember having horrible migraines and bad headaches probably at 8 already, but really ramped up once puberty hit, which is very typical for so many people. I think lots of people have that story and that journey where that is kind of a major catalyst into a really yucky head pain journey.
Yeah, either escalation or the start of things. Just our body's going through so many changes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And watching my teenagers go through that, being a teenager is difficult.
It's
It's
a hard
really
stage of life.
difficult.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then my migraines just increased as I got older. In my 20s, I remember I went to college for a little bit and I would have so many migraines, just so many migraines. And that increased by yearly, every year. It kept getting worse and worse and worse. In 2020, I got diagnosed with Epstein-Barr virus, and that is not a fun. That's like mono, but on a bigger scale. So that put me in the hospital, and when people ask, or even when you ask, you know, the severity of your migraines, that is like the worst I've ever experienced. So when people see me and they're like, do you have a migraine today? And like previously, and I said, well, yeah. And they're like, how are you functioning? I said, because I've experienced the horribleness of that Epstein-Barr type of migraine that is, you just don't know where to put yourself, and no amount of medication
Oh my goodness.
can help. So that is my severe side. So I can function in my horrible daily life of like
Right.
really bad headaches and then really bad migraines as well. Probably once a week I would get one that I just like, I was out on Sundays for a good 3 hours where I just had to be in a dark room and take a nap. And yeah, that really affected our family time as well, because Sundays are often for more fun and just doing things as a family. And so if mom is sick with a migraine and down and out, that doesn't happen. So that's hard, as having your family watch you be in pain. I've also struggled with pretty severe body pain for many years, and that was difficult to go through because all the physicians ever wanted to give me was more and more medication. And I did not want to take more and more medication because with that medication comes other side effects. And then you're often taking medication for those side effects.
Yeah.
So I just, again, for the most part, lived with that. I do take gabapentin to help, but even that is, I'm playing with the idea of going down in milligrams because I don't have it to the same extent, but we'll get to that part of the story yet.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing all of that, and that's from a young age, that's kind of a lot to deal with, right? The Epstein-Barr virus and all that hit you hard. And, that I know that can be very long lasting, can have long lasting effects, months and months. It can take somebody a long time to recover and to get through it. And presumably, there's a reason that certain things hit some people harder than others too. Like there's, already if you were dealing with the autoimmune, issue, and who knows what had transpired that had led up to that, but there's a history and it all kind of plays part, but then it compounds and you have this happen to you and this happened to you. And then before you know it, if you're only using medication to just deal with the symptoms, you're not going to be actually improving. You might find more and more things crop up.
Right.
And so I'm curious, like at the point where we met or where you, found me and found the group and started to think, having always wanted to take a holistic approach and doing your best to like explore that, were you at that point where you're just like, I need to do something different, or I'm going to need to take this extra medication, or I'm going to need to get out of my life the way I'm doing it, like start doing something differently?
I guess there's this view, it's twofold. So one is seeing my daughter start to get more migraines, and even my son, they're both my daughter's 16 and my son is 13. And so to see them start to get migraines, that as a mom, you're like, oh, stinker. I don't want them to have the same lifestyle and health journey that I did just because they're in my gene pool.
Yeah.
And just because they're my kids.
Yeah.
So that was one part of it, was that I felt like I needed skills so that we can maybe stop that common.
Yeah.
And it's always been like, my mom has said, well, I had migraines too. And yeah, but maybe we can do something about that.
Right. Maybe we can stop it and help the
always.
next generation to not have to deal with it the same way.
Yeah. And then also it's well, like starting this business, and there's so much stress with that. And so I don't have time to have intense pain. I need a clear mind. I need to be able to think straight because there's a lot of people depending on me. And I have a huge heart for helping people and working together with people. And so then I need to try and be in my best space of living. And I wasn't there.
Yeah. So what would you do when you like, I mean, other symptoms aside of like even the celiac and
Right.
other the body pain and the other health stuff you're going through, or maybe it was all intertwined and intermingled. And when your migraine came on, the other things would ramp up, or the other things ramping up would create obviously
Mhm.
that also a more likelihood that you'll get a bad headache or migraine. But what were you reaching to? What were you going to? And what were you doing when you had this episode hit you?
Oh, hello. Tylenol was my best friend. Tylenol and some form of anti-inflammatory. We were BFFs for many, many years. And because I have worked in healthcare since I was 18,
Mhm.
I know that is not great to be constantly reaching for that. Or I would have Tylenol number ones, which has some codeine in it,
Mhm.
a little bit of caffeine, um, but nothing really would ever make it like it would numb it a little, right? But it's never like, oh, that's just taking care of numbing the pain. That's not dealing with the root of, well, why is this always happening?
Mhm.
So, but yeah, I was best friends with Tylenol.
Okay, yeah. And I don't even remember what your original answer was to this, but is there a reason like you didn't go and get a prescription medication for your migraine episodes or headaches?
Yeah, so I mean, I do have one that if I can catch my migraine on like it right in the beginning, it's a different form of an anti-inflammatory. It's in a powder, so I mix it with water and it helps.
Mhm.
But again, you often with lifestyle and just moving and busy, that window is and it's gone. Well, okay, that now the window's
Yeah.
gone.
And I remember you were saying initially when we were talking about prodrome symptoms and about the different phases of a migraine, you said, I don't have any prodrome symptoms, or I don't know what my
No,
prodrome symptoms are.
no.
So eventually you figured that out. You did
Yeah,
discover some, which was nice. And I remember you being excited about that. But initially you're like, I can't catch it early because I honestly don't know when it's coming. Uh,
right.
Knowing when it's
And I
coming is
guess,
one way to feel like you're in control because you can take something early if you're still
yeah,
needing to. Yeah.
yeah. And the doctors, they would often want to have me be on an antidepressant or a blood pressure medication. Those are two pretty common ones for
Mhm.
people who suffer with migraines all the
Yep.
time. But
Yep.
I'm not depressed, like at all.
Yeah.
Like I'm just not. That's not my issue. And
Yep.
I'm thankful for that. But I'm like, no, because again, I know there's side effects from taking that medication. And then high blood pressure medication, but I have low blood pressure. So
That's going to make you feel worse.
why
That's going to be,
I'll be
yeah.
even more tired, even more sluggish. That did not make logical sense to me
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
try those avenues.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you would take, let's say the Tylenol, Advil, even Tylenol one, would you still, on your worst days, like you say, sometimes you just had to like check out? Did you have to lie down? And was there anything else that gave you relief? Were there any things that you tried, even like on a grander scale of like working with a practitioner to get at the roots if you knew that you didn't want to use medication and this conventional way wasn't what you wanted? Did
Right.
you work with somebody else to try to tackle it from
Yeah.
a different angle?
So part of my story, when you're in a space of dealing with a lot of health issues, so I have a diagnosed, like I have celiac disease. I have this body pain. I have migraines all the time. I was in a desperate space constantly of trying to figure out the why. And so I have tried thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of natural products, supplements, and different companies. Like
Mhm.
basically, I have a like thank you to my husband, huge thank you to him for supporting me and like being like, okay, she's trying another thing. But
Yeah,
he was also, he doesn't want to see me in pain. And I think that's a
of
thing when you're
course.
a loved one, seeing your spouse or your partner in so much pain, it's you also become desperate to let's figure this out.
Of
I
course.
tried
Yeah.
tons of different companies for like natural products, and they would work to an extent, and then the formulation would change, and then that would not work at all, like
Mhm.
they would change something, but it never really fully, like again, I still didn't know what my symptoms were leading up the prodrome. I had no idea.
Mhm.
I have worked with a naturopathic doctor in the past, and I've said many times, I'm a hot mess. So there's just so many issues within all my systems. Um, and I've tried like the Candida diet. That was not enjoyable, but I tried it and nothing ever fully worked. So for as much as I tried, we couldn't get down to the whys ever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the reason, I guess, I was like, maybe Julie can help, because it seemed like you had, just from the outside looking in, it seemed like you had more of a focus on like getting down to the root cause. And I know lots of people can say that, but it just, the way you've presented yourself, for me, it connected in the fact that well, maybe somebody can figure out and do this detective work with me, because I've tried so much of it on my own and I still haven't figured it out. I've done tons of research. So I needed somebody to look at the big picture, but be outside of the pain, right?
Yeah, yeah. I even say this like practitioners themselves, I believe strongly, and should have their own practitioners almost, because even no matter how much it's hard to have that objective view. It's the shoemaker syndrome as well. Like sometimes you end up wanting to help others too much. You still need that psychological like side of it, the therapy side of like you got to look after yourself. Remember, yes, these people are in more pain than you, and they're suffering more, but you may end up there too if you don't follow your own rules. If you don't, so it's the difference between like empathizing but not internalizing all that energy. And so all this to say, it's hard to be objective about yourself, no matter who you are and how much you know.
Yeah.
So it's great that you recognize that, and that you still had faith that there's somebody out there that can like maybe help you play that detective. And it's, we even two people that have the same sort of goal of getting at root causes, it's the process that can make a difference too, because somebody who, if a particular practitioner only has 10-minute appointments or 30 minutes to spend with you once every month or once every 2 months. But what you need is somebody who's like literally following your life, the ins and outs of like week by week by week, and seeing how the protocol is actually, unfolding and how it's affecting you, and being able to adjust more quickly. That can make a difference in how quickly somebody improves, right? And not being left to your own devices. And some people are working with so many people, it's hard to remember and to know the ins and outs of somebody's history and current situation, keep on top of it. So it's a different level of detective work that you're provided through different people, and they use labs, like some use labs. We don't use necessarily labs first as a first place to go. It's not always necessary, and it's not always the best thing, because there's a lot we can go do based on symptoms. We can start working on and deduce, and then get your labs done and see how far, see what's happened, see where we're landing, and then go from there. So anyways, very happy that you like entrusted me and decided to take that leap. Is there, I suppose, like speaking of family members and that, like, have they been supportive of this from the start? How did they feel about you entering into something like this that is pretty intense? Like, it's pretty involved. You were very busy. I remember you saying when you first came in, like, I think there were a period of time where you wanted to start, but you're like, I'm too busy. And then you're like, it's always going to be busy, I'm just going to start, but it was maybe like
fall when we were harvesting the garden, and I was in the garden 6 days a week, 6 hours a day. And that was just one garden, not our other gardens as well. So that was nuts.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm learning good boundaries.
Well, this is the thing. It's hard when you're in the throes of it. You have to do something. But this is what I always say to people too. If you're unable to reach that point where you're unable to do anything, then what good are you to anybody or yourself? Like, you're going to kick yourself, right? So at least because of the flexibility of how we do things, it's like at your pace. It's, let's start where you can. Let's start where you are and move to the next thing. And sometimes a very small adjustment can make a really big difference, right? So it's having, again, that outsider's perspective of and view on what seems to be really going on for somebody. It's now this is the first thing you should tackle and like, work at it.
Mm-hmm.
And we know what that one thing was for you, and still it continues to be. But just even making shifts, like slow shifts in how you were doing things, started to help, and started to have you feeling better. So what was my next question? Now getting into, the transformation. How did things start to shift for you? And when did you first start noticing that things were improving?
This is where I have to go to your notes that you kept such a good track, because I wouldn't have remembered all this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. We change once we start feeling better. It's a good thing. It's a protective thing. Like we forget how awful it was or how awful we felt. But I keep notes for.
I'm very thankful you keep notes.
It's to know week by week what's shifting, what's changing, and what you are doing, and how it's affected how you're feeling. That's what I do. But yes, it's helpful at the end of, not the end of a journey. I won't say that because the journey is ongoing. But like, at the end of a time period, you like get to look back and reflect and think like, wow, this is cool.
So it was really nice. I remember that I think it was the first time I would have had my menstrual cycle, and I didn't get just one of those nasty migraines that I normally, it's so typical for many people to get just a brutal migraine that kicks you to the curb, basically. So that was really nice, and I was shocked. I will go back though. You asked if the family was really supportive, and yes, my family was super supportive. They are overly supportive. They're the ones who are still hounding me to go to bed early. Oh, I'm a night owl. Which I'm going to give a little pause there. And I had a counseling session yesterday, and she made a really good point, because I have loved being a night owl my whole life. It is a time just for more quiet, but when you have teenagers, that quiet is gone.
Yeah.
But it still is so ingrained in me. And so to give yourself grace in a healing journey is good. So if you can make it to bed one time a week for a while early, that's an amazing thing, because our brains are so hardwired to do the same thing. Well, I've done this. That's the comfortable thing. Yeah. This is what I know. Just like
this is safe. It tells us this is safe.
What you grab when you're dealing with pain. Lots of people grab the things that will actually cause more inflammation, because it's a habit. We're so naturally ingrained to go with our habits. So to create new habits is a lot of work.
It takes a conscious effort. Support. We have to give That's great that your family is on your
my family is on board, and they're so encouraging. They make me tons of meat, because that's part of what works really well for me, is to have more meat. I thought I was eating lots of meat. Turns out I wasn't eating enough. But they are so supportive. Okay, so if we then move on, we're starting to change things in like my diet, but it's not just diet even, right? Like your program is so multi-layered. There's people say, well, what's the one thing? I can't name the one thing that actually helps, because it's a compounding effect. It all works together as a whole team. So I can't give a specific one thing. At around the 2-month mark, then I noticed my body pain was so much less. I would grab Tylenol, because remember, I'm best friends with Tylenol, for my body pain, and I wasn't. And I'm like, what in the world is happening? How have I gone a whole day with no Tylenol? It was years and years and years of daily use.
Wow.
Like multiple times a day of grabbing for some kind of support to help alleviate the pain and allow me to work, to still move and function and be a mom and a wife and do all the things. Everybody has so much on their plate. But there was this like moment of, I didn't grab Tylenol, and my body actually doesn't hurt like at all.
I remember you saying your husband would even notice, because I was like, well, how does he know when you're taking medication? Do you tell him every time? You're like, he hears the bottle.
He
He
hears
hears
the
me going
bottle.
into the bottle. And I was like, yeah, I know that too. When my husband's reaching for something for his
Everybody knows the sound.
yeah, yeah. And then they're like, oh, how are you feeling? Are you okay? And it's, yeah, even if you don't want to be saying anything to anyone, it's more obvious.
Yeah.
That's
And my body started to naturally wake up. Like I used to love to sleep in because of being a night owl.
mm-hmm,
But like I would be going to bed at 2 in the morning.
mm-hmm.
So then my body would need more sleep. So I would sleep in, but then I would wake up with a headache almost every day because your whole cycle is off.
Yeah.
So now we're working that back. And I would say my body naturally wakes me up at about 7:30 every day without an alarm. It just gets me up and I'm like, can I sleep a little more? Oh, stinker. I'm awake.
Gonna have to go to bed earlier tonight.
Yeah, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like my kids, this is why I don't love when they go to bed too late, because
Right.
they don't sleep in. And I know that's a good thing. They have a circadian rhythm that's working
Mhm.
still. But it just means that they're more likely to want to take a nap later in the day or get cranky or,
Yeah.
want to fall asleep earlier the next night. Well, it doesn't happen with kids, but yeah, you're getting back to that point where you're like your body was as a kid again, like how it's supposed to be, the natural rhythm of sleep. So, and at night though, you're still fighting that,
I'm still fighting.
you're getting past what we call like, there's that spot where your energy starts to drop, and that's your sign that, okay,
Yeah.
we're sleepy time, we need to be going to bed. But then if you
Right.
get over that, you can get that surge in energy and this
And I
clinical
do.
pulse.
So
Yeah.
like
You
we've
miss the
talked about
window.
this in our group and almost everyone in our group struggles with this is the
Mm-hmm.
sleep issue. So it's nice to know you're not alone on a lot of
Mm-hmm.
these issues. It's a common theme.
Yeah.
But it feels too early for me when my body starts like I'm like, I got hours left. I can do things. Like, no. So I need to start listening to my body and
Mm-hmm.
like taking note of that. Just like I can see more now what my prodrome symptoms are. Well,
Yeah.
I couldn't recognize before and maybe didn't want to acknowledge
When
when
you're ready for bed.
when I was starting to my body was saying it's time to get ready for bed.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah. And I mean, but you've come a long way, because it was, and acknowledging too in the morning, like, oh, look how much better I feel having gone to bed even at 11 instead of 2
right, yeah,
a.m. Right.
yeah,
Like a world of difference right there. But yeah, it's still, like you say, years and years of habit, of pattern, and a mindset around like, I still need to do a few more things for somebody who has like a jam-packed life
right,
and wants to build everything into their day.
yeah,
Yeah, it's great. It's like you say, good that others experiencing the same thing, but at the same time, you're like, oh, too bad this is such a struggle for so many people. And I mean, screen time doesn't help. Like this all
right,
affects our circadian rhythm, but there's strategies to, again, bringing our brain back into like that more that flow, and where it's signaling to us, and the melatonin and the cortisol is working properly again. But it takes those efforts, and then we obviously still have to listen to it. We can't be fighting it so hard. But you've been doing a great job of at least bringing it back to the point where only when you absolutely have to are you staying up super late, when you've got
right, yes,
client work or like business related
yeah,
things that can't really be avoided. Yeah. So cool. So now at this point, besides not using a ton of Tylenol for body pain, let's say, like, how do you feel like otherwise the migraine episodes, the headaches, do you feel like more in control? Do you feel like you don't always have to reach, like, are the natural things now more effective for you versus before they wouldn't touch it? Like, do you have those kinds of outcomes too?
yes. It's a yes no answer or
Mm-hmm.
yes I'm maybe not yes no but yes and I'm working towards more like
Yeah.
we can easily see I have more work to do, which is
Mm-hmm.
why I've extended my time with you. So yeah, I do have significantly less migraines in a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I have way less headaches. Like I don't have a daily headache anymore. And that was my day. So my daily headache would probably equal a lot of people's normal migraine. It was really, really, really bad. And it would have a lot of those migraine symptoms, but I wouldn't label it as that because it's not my bad migraine.
Yeah, it may have been, it still may have
Yeah.
been, but
Yeah.
to you, because of the degree of severity, you were
Right.
considering them more like headaches. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't have those daily nasty headaches anymore, which is really nice. And yeah, I definitely have, I'll try and reach for the natural things like different essential oils that we've talked about. And like you have posted in the group, even going for a walk. I never used to take time for that.
Mm.
And because we have winter so much here, and it's the weather is yucky. So sometimes all I could do was go sit outside and breathe in the cold air.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned that even in itself helps when it's like, well, the weather is yucky and it's icy, but I still needed to get outside and be breathing in the fresh air.
Yeah, it
So,
can be hard for a lot of people who aren't feeling well to think of moving their body. First of all,
yeah,
they just feel like kind of freezing and staying still and like laying still,
yeah,
thinking that other thing's going to make me feel worse.
right.
But interestingly enough, give it a try, see how it affects, and it's the compounding effect too. Like it's in the moment, it can be very helpful, but also just for someone that's getting them every day, let's say, or very frequently,
Yeah.
just pushing yourself a little to like, get that movement in, because for all the different reasons, but like sunlight is so healing, fresh air is so important. It's important for our neurotransmitters. It's important for body processes and conversions in our body. And then just, it's even like a mental side of it of, I got outside today, like instead of sitting, I don't want to blame anyone for like feeling bad for themselves or for sitting in their misery or being truthful. I don't feel like I can make any of these changes or do these moves, but it's just taking that first step, trying it out. And then the next time, just trusting this is going to make me feel better. I'm going to do it. And like you say, your weather is not great where you live. Like it's way worse than even where I am in Ottawa. And because we'd be on the calls and you'd be like telling us about the weather and it would just be what we were getting, but to like the 10th degree, it was just
It often feels like
longer
East
lasting.
Coast weather, like just it's yucky.
Yeah.
I still love where I live. So
Yeah. There's better seasons too, probably. but yeah, pros and cons everywhere to everything. But yeah, it's just you've learned anyway some of your own what works for you. And when we're looking at too, like other symptoms that we may not have spoken about yet, but are there any other like standout top symptoms that were like not that you kind of were struggling with, or that you had goals to kind of get out from underneath? What would you say those were?
I really didn't like, so one of the side effects, I don't know, the lasting side effects of Epstein-Barr was I would still have some tremors. So I didn't like that, and I knew it was worse when I would be overtired, so then that happened often because I wasn't getting adequate sleep. Brain fog was huge, like really, really big. That was big. So that like the mental clarity was pretty big one for me. And I think that's probably a big one for everyone, most people.
Yeah, anybody, even running a household, even if you're not working outside the home, you have a lot of things to juggle, especially with kids. If you have any kind of responsibilities, like you need to kind of keep track of everything. And I find people in jobs where roles that we need to communicate a lot to people, that especially if you're being looked up to, like you're in a management position or a business owner, or you've got, again, people that you're responsible for to keep employed and to, they need to know what they need to do. And it must feel like very frustrating not to be able to formulate your thoughts, to communicate your thoughts.
It's terribly frustrating when you have a word in your head and you know it's there, but you can't find it. I would say it would make me sometimes feel like I wanted to cry because it was so felt like debilitating. Like I should
Yeah.
be able to find that word.
Was
And I
it
know
scary
it's
to
in
you?
there.
Were you worried that like something was going on?
No, I
Like,
was just frustrated
yeah.
because I saw an increase in that with
Mm.
Epstein-Barr that really increased. And so I needed that to come back. Like I needed that to stop.
Yeah.
I really needed that to stop.
So how is that going now? Is it a lot better? Is it somewhat better?
No, it's a lot better. It's not
Yeah.
fully gone. Again, sleep
Depending on how you're doing. Yeah.
played a major
Yeah.
contributing
Yeah.
factor in that. So, like, we need space for our brains even to heal. And that really only happens when we sleep.
Hmm.
And so, if I don't give myself space to do that, then I'm not allowing my brain to heal on many levels, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So when, just looking back then at, again, these forms that you fill out when you first start in and all the
Mhm.
different symptoms, and of course, looking at your whole history and what's going on for you. I mean, you had many, many, many symptoms noted as far as, again, experiencing them frequently, severely, and, giving it a score of two or three, instead of a mild or a zero, not non-existent. You had quite a few. You had over 60 easily. And of course, with things like fatigue and on top of the headaches
Mhm.
and migraines, you had the fatigue and the brain fog and the
Yeah.
digestive, of course, stuff going
Yeah.
on, nausea,
Yeah.
skin issues, all of the full gamut. So it was really nice to see when you recompleted that form,
Yeah.
16 weeks later, how many, many, many of these things did improve for you,
Yes.
and including the things you just mentioned.
Mhm.
And you know, like you were saying, everything's connected and things go hand in hand. So when you start addressing the roots, going back to things that may be underlying everything, and really working on the nutrition and how are we getting the nutrients in, and how well are we digesting it so that we can absorb the nutrients. And obviously in your personal situation, it's a little unique too, and you need extra, supplementation and
Yeah.
um, but it
Autoimmune
all plays
celiac
together.
disease.
Yeah, yeah. And the sleep, the lifestyle stuff, the everything helps, right?
Yeah.
But it was really nice that even though you knew that you had steps that you still wanted to take, you were just feeling so much resistance. And you had an idea of, I know I can still keep improving. You still had such a huge improvement, really.
Yeah.
You across the board, almost all symptoms did improve,
Yeah.
to some degree. And when we look at the kind of totals of the scores, one of the top scores for you, as it is for many, many of my clients, is the endocrine system. And that involves the hormones,
Yeah.
the reproductive hormones and all of that too.
Yeah.
But endocrine is more than just that. It's like all the endocrine glands in our body. So things that
So how
control
about you
sleep.
explain that? Because a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah, like the endocrine system is involved in all types of hormones, and we have hormones involved in hunger and satiety. We have hormones involved in sleep. We have hormones involved in the stress response, which we know is one of the initial, again, underlying root causes or root factors of that can have a cascading effect onto everything. But we have hormones involved in what else? Digestion and our mood, and like neurotransmitters are also considered hormones. Certain neurotransmitters are also considered hormones in there. But like our insulin is pumped out, from a gland, and that's takes care of blood sugar and blood sugar regulation. So I know I'm
So it
missing
affects
but it's
basically our whole body is what you're saying.
it's
And I
crucial.
would agree with that. And I think that's maybe another reason why I was thinking about joining you is because I had just turned 40 this last year. I guess last year, I'm turning 41 soon. And I'm like, oh no. My mom started getting nasty hot flashes right around early 40s. And I'm like, I do not want to deal with that. And she still is dealing with that, like now, and she's 65.
Wow.
So
Oh my goodness.
I
Okay.
was like, no.
Yeah, it can
No.
make a real difference. It's true. How we feel, how we move through perimenopause, that phase, which can be long and it can be drawn out, like how we feel through that in that phase, it can vary greatly, and it can make it is all about how, again, the things within our control. Let's do those things to keep things in balance as much as possible. Keep those nutrition, the nutrient status of everything level and in the right range, and we'll have a much easier time. And instead of having all those extreme symptoms that people talk about, it doesn't have to be the case. It doesn't. It's not a given.
Right.
So, yeah, that's early too. 40 years old. Wow.
Yeah.
It's too early, and especially to be dragging out that long. So yes, the endocrine system, extremely important. And so is the digestive system and intestinal, and your intestinal system, like really across the board, intestinal, endocrine, cardiovascular, and nervous system, like all your numbers improved by almost 50%. And even intestinal, where you have, yes, you have celiac, you are going to be forever impacted by that. Like, it's not something that's going to be completely reversible, but doesn't mean that we can't improve other parts of the digestive system so that things don't progress even more than they are, and we can still keep inflammation down so it's not aggravating you and like throughout your whole body. So I think a lot of great work was done, clearly, because of so many symptoms that improved, like things that you maybe didn't necessarily bother you day to day, but would crop up every once in a while, or would and then severely impact you. Like I know you mentioned canker sores, and we never actually talked about that, but I know that I used to get them too, again, when I was like nutrient depleted. Like I had certain nutrients that I definitely was deficient in, and get the worst canker sores.
Yes.
And they can last like a whole week or even more, and then just food isn't enjoyable. And it's again one of those things with pain. It's consuming, like it's kind of becomes all that you can think about, and it's hard to distract yourself from it. So yeah, even that you had noted is better. So that's a good sign. But I guess, maybe unless you have anything, I just wanted to ask you, if in your experience, what would you say to somebody that if somebody was in your position or some similar position where they have leading a busy life and they have tried things, they know a lot, they've tried a lot of things, but they're kind of tired of putting energy into it, but they kind of know they still want to feel better, need to feel better. They're trying to put in energy, money, and time into it, but they know they need to do something. What would you say to somebody, sitting on the fence about reaching out to someone, to me or someone like me, somebody who does it this way? What would you say to them if they're questioning, if they came to you and asked you about what you thought about that?
Well, I'd say do it, but they also have to be in a space of willing to do it, because you have to be an active participant. You have it all set up, but if we are not willing to actively participate and listen to the whole everything you're setting up for us, then it's still not going to work. So, like, choosing from the beginning to say, I am going to do this. I'm going to listen to all the audio. I'm going to read the stuff. I'm going to attend the group sessions. I'm going to make a big effort to get my food on track and not cheat all the time and go grab for all those things that are inflammatory that a lot of us like, the things that taste great, but they cause inflammation. It's an active choice that you're being a participant in it, not just listening to what you're saying. So
yeah, right. Things aren't going to change just because you heard it and received the information.
So that's a big part. And you won't know until you try. Like, you just won't. There are so many options out there. You can go see your doctor and they will give you many different medications, but again, you will have side effects from those medications. I have experienced that myself, and I have worked in that world, so I'm not against it. I've done both. I like both worlds. I like the allopathic world, and I like more of the natural holistic side. And I'm finding the natural holistic side works better. We're not just putting a band-aid on. We're trying to figure out the whys. And that is a big reason why this works, is you're willing to dig down and try and figure out like what for this individual, what is going to work for them, because we are all individuals and you do treat us like that. Now there are lots of commonalities, but we still are individual.
Yeah. Yeah, beautifully put. Yeah. And I love how from the very get-go, you were like, I'm in it, I'm doing this, showed up to every call, like despite how busy you are, despite how much I'm sure you wanted to just like get some extra work done or maybe try to go to bed earlier or whatever it was, is like you showed up and you actually sat through, not, judging anyone who has to hop off of a call, especially when they're not feeling well. But, you stayed there, you were there for others, participating in the program, and you wanted to just absorb. I could tell you were like absorbing it all like a sponge, and it's a partnership and it's participation. So I'm listening to you and I'm learning from you, and you're also listening to what I have to say. And it's like, it's always your decision, but it's this partnership. And it's, I think, I'm so happy that you made that decision for yourself. And for anyone listening who feels like they're in a similar position, or they just feel like they need to try something, do it a different way because what they're doing doesn't work, whether it's allopathic or other types of natural ways, it just might not be enough intensity, or it might not be like the format that works. This is why it depends on the person and what they need in the moment. But I'm really happy you jumped in and that you are where you are, and we're continuing to work at it for sure, right, Rach?
And I think those calls that you have weekly, like there's sometimes I haven't been able to be on a full call, but there's so often times you'll hear somebody else talking about their journey and you're talking to them and it triggers something in your brain. Oh, okay, we need to learn about that as well. And when you hadn't thought about that, just like I didn't know previously what my symptoms were and my signs were leading up to a migraine. So things just trigger that you hadn't thought of before. And that's another reason why the group calls work well.
Yeah, so much learning to be done from other people's experiences. Yeah, that's so true. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I know it's busy. Hopefully this didn't hold you back too much, but we'll be in touch. And if anybody has questions for Racheal, Racheal, you tell me, but hopefully, would you be willing to answer them in the comments or whatnot? Well, have a good rest of your day and weekend. Hopefully the weather, it looks sunny where you are. I'm not sure if you're in natural light. Here it is too. No more snow. We're done with that. Knock on wood. Okay. Bye-bye, Racheal.
Okay, see you.